A timeless narrative, woven into the very fabric of Slavic folklore, invites listeners into a world where hope blossoms even in the most barren of circumstances. It begins, as many cherished tales do, with an elderly couple whose hearts yearned for the patter of little feet, for a child who would fill the quiet emptiness in their humble dwelling. Day after day, their fervent prayers ascended, painting a poignant picture of longing for the warmth and laughter only a child could bring into their lives. And then, in a moment many might call a miracle, their deepest wish was fulfilled. Some say a tiny wooden figure, lovingly carved from a log, came to life before their astonished eyes, while others whisper of a child simply appearing, as if born from the very essence of their heartfelt desire. Thus came into being the remarkable boy known as Ivasyk-Telesyk, a beacon of joy who quickly grew, full of an adventurous spirit and sharp wit beyond his tender years. His parents, overflowing with affection, cherished him immensely, their days now illuminated by his vibrant presence. As young Ivasyk-Telesyk matured, his favorite pastime became fishing, a solitary pursuit on the tranquil waters. Each day, his loving mother would bring him food, her voice echoing across the water, a familiar melody calling him to shore. However, with every delivered meal came a solemn warning, a cautionary tale about the lurking dangers beyond the safety of their home, specifically, the sinister designs of a malicious old witch, ever vigilant, ever eager to ensnare the unwary. This formidable adversary, cunning and relentless, often attempted to mimic his mother's gentle call, hoping to deceive the boy. Yet, Ivasyk-Telesyk, endowed with extraordinary discernment, invariably recognized the deception, his keen mind seeing through the illusion, thus thwarting her initial nefarious plans. Despite his vigilance, the witch's persistence knew no bounds. Her dark machinations continued, escalating in their treacherous nature, until, in a moment of vulnerability or through an exceptionally cunning strategy, she finally managed to seize the unsuspecting boy. Dragged away from the familiar embrace of the river, Ivasyk-Telesyk found himself imprisoned in her desolate, ominous hut, a place permeated by an unsettling silence and the chilling premonition of impending doom. The very air seemed heavy with the witch's dark intentions as she began to prepare her grim feast, the boy's fate hung by a thread. In a desperate bid for survival, and with astonishing quick-wittedness, Ivasyk-Telesyk employed a masterful ruse. When the malevolent witch ordered him onto a baker's peel, intending to shove him into the scorching heat of the oven, he feigned ignorance, displaying utter bewilderment regarding her instructions. His innocently portrayed confusion proved to be her undoing. Exasperated by his apparent inability, the witch, in a moment of fatal impatience, decided to demonstrate the action herself. With a swift, decisive move, Ivasyk-Telesyk seized the opportunity, shoving his tormentor into the fiery maw of her own oven, thus sealing her horrific fate. Having bravely overcome the immediate danger, the resourceful boy wasted no time. He fled the witch's dismal abode, his heart pounding with a mixture of terror and triumph. The journey back to his beloved home was not without its own trials, however, fate seemed to be on his side now. In some versions of this captivating narrative, a flock of majestic geese or a solitary benevolent duck played a pivotal role, safely ferrying him across vast waters or aiding his swift return. Upon arrival at his parents' dwelling, the reunion was nothing short of miraculous, a poignant testament to enduring love and the triumph of hope over despair. The timeless narrative of Ivasyk-Telesyk resonates deeply, not merely as a children's tale, but as a profound allegory of innocence confronting evil, courage born of necessity, and the unwavering strength of family bonds. It is a story that invites reflection on themes of vigilance, ingenuity, and the ultimate victory of good, leaving an indelible mark on all who encounter its rich tapestry of events. The full depth of this remarkable journey, with all its intricate details and emotional crescendo, unfolds for those who embark on its complete exploration. In ancient times, when years had visibly burdened their shoulders, there lived an old man and an old woman who, to their great sorrow, were childless. Their hearts ached with grief at the thought, who will look after us in our old age if we have no heirs? One day, consumed by longing, the old woman turned to the old man, "Go, old man, into the forest, cut down a small piece of wood for me there, and make a cradle. I will put this piece of wood in the cradle and rock it, it will bring me some comfort." The old man initially hesitated, but the old woman's persistent pleas eventually convinced him. He cut down a suitable piece of wood and lovingly crafted a cradle. The old woman carefully placed the wooden piece in the cradle, and, rocking it, she began to hum a simple lullaby. Lullaby, lullaby, Telesyk. I've made you some kalesh. With little legs and little arms. I will feed you. She rocked and sang until evening came and they lay down to sleep. In the morning, scarcely awake, they discovered the incredible. From that very piece of wood, a little son appeared. Their joy knew no bounds, it was impossible to describe in words. The newborn was named Telesyk. The child grew, transforming into a fine young man, and the old man and old woman couldn't admire him enough, their souls filled with pride. When Telesyk grew older, he turned to his father, "Father, make me a golden boat and a silver oar. I will catch fish and feed you." The old man, without hesitation, fulfilled his son's request, creating wonderful fishing gear for him. The boat was launched onto the river, and Telesyk went fishing. He sailed the river, catching fish, and regularly brought it to the old man and old woman, providing for their sustenance, after which he would set off again for a catch. His mother brought him food daily, admonishing him, "Mind you, son, as soon as I call, row to the bank. But if it's a stranger, keep rowing further." One day, his mother prepared breakfast, brought it to the bank, and called, "Telesyk, Telesyk. Row, row to the bank, I'll give you food and drink." Telesyk, hearing the familiar voice, murmured, "Row even closer, boat, to the bank, it's my mother bringing breakfast." He rowed up, landed on the bank, ate, drank, pushed off the golden boat with the silver oar, and continued fishing. Meanwhile, a cunning serpent, having overheard the mother's call, came to the bank and began to shout in a hoarse voice, "Telesyk, Telesyk. Row, row to the bank, I'll give you food and drink." But Telesyk recognized the deception, "That's not my mother's voice. Row, row, boat, further, row, row, boat, further." He waved his oar, and the boat sailed away. The serpent stood for a while and then left the bank. Soon, Telesyk's mother again prepared his lunch, brought it to the bank, and called, "Telesyk, Telesyk. Row, row to the bank, I'll give you food and drink." He heard and exclaimed, "Closer, closer, boat, to the bank, it's my mother bringing me lunch." Rowing to the bank, he ate, drank, gave his mother the fish he had caught, pushed off the boat, and went fishing again. But the serpent again approached the bank and again, in a hoarse voice, "Telesyk, Telesyk. Row, row to the bank, I'll give you food and drink." But he, hearing a strange voice, waved his oar, "Row, row, boat, further, row, row, boat, further." The boat sailed away again. The serpent, realizing the futility of her attempts, went to a blacksmith. "Blacksmith, blacksmith. Forge me a voice as thin and gentle as Telesyk's mother's." The blacksmith fulfilled her request. With the new voice, the serpent went to the bank and began to call, "Telesyk, Telesyk. Row, row to the bank, I'll give you food and drink." Telesyk, deceived by the similarity of the voice, thought it was his mother. "Row even closer, boat, to the bank, it's my mother bringing me food." And he rowed to the bank. The serpent immediately seized him from the boat and carried him to her hut. "Ilyanka the serpent, open up." Ilyanka opened. The serpent entered the hut and ordered, "Ilyanka the serpent, heat the oven so hot that the stones crumble, and bake Telesyk for me. I'll go call the guests, and we'll feast." And she flew off to gather guests. Ilyanka heated the oven so hot that the stones inside it began to crumble, and then she turned to Telesyk, "Sit, Lesyk, on the peel." He replied, "I don't know how to sit on it." "Just sit on it." Ilyanka insisted. He placed his hand on the peel, "Like this?" "No," she objected, "sit all the way on it." He placed his head, "Like this, maybe?" "No," she said, "sit all of you on it." "How then?" "Is it like this?" He placed his leg. "No," Ilyanka replied, "not like that." "Well, then show me," Lesyk asked, "because I don't know." Ilyanka began to show him. But as soon as she sat on the peel, Telesyk grabbed it, threw her into the oven, and slid the damper shut. He then locked the hut, climbed up a very tall ash tree, and hid there. Soon the serpent arrived with guests. Alyonka the serpent, open up. There was no answer. Alyonka the serpent, open up. Silence. That wretched Alyonka, she's disappeared somewhere. The serpent opened the hut herself. The guests entered and sat at the table. The serpent opened the damper, took out what was in the oven, and everyone began to eat, believing it to be Telesyk. After eating well, they went out into the yard and began to roll around in the grass, chanting, "I'll roll, I'll tumble," having eaten Telesyk's flesh. And Telesyk from the ash tree replied, "Roll, tumble, having eaten Alyonka's flesh." They listened, "Where is that?" And again, "I'll roll, I'll tumble, having eaten Telesyk's flesh." And he again, "Roll, tumble, having eaten Alyonka's flesh." They again, "What is that?" They began to search, look around, and finally saw Telesyk on the ash tree. They rushed to the tree and began to gnaw at it. They gnawed and gnawed until their teeth broke, but they couldn't gnaw through. Then they rushed to a blacksmith. "Blacksmith, blacksmith, forge us teeth strong enough to gnaw through that ash tree." The blacksmith forged them new teeth. They began to gnaw again, and the ash tree was about to give way. At this time a flock of geese flew by, and Telesyk addressed them with a plea, "Geese, geese, little goslings, take me on your wings and carry me to my father, for with my father there is food and drink, and a good time to be had." But the geese replied, "Let the middle ones take you." And the serpents gnawed and gnawed. Soon another flock of geese flew by. Telesyk again pleaded, "Geese, geese, little goslings, take me on your wings and carry me to my father, for with my father there is food and drink, and a good time to be had." And these geese told him, "Let the last ones take you." And the ash tree was already cracking. The serpents rested and gnawed again, rested and again. And then another flock of geese flew by. Telesyk likewise asked them, "Geese, geese, little goslings, take me on your wings and carry me to my father, for with my father there is food and drink, and a good time to be had." And these said, "Let the last one take you," and flew away. Poor Telesyk sat there, the ash tree about to fall, he was about to perish. Suddenly, a lone gosling flew by, separated from its flock, barely staying airborne. Telesyk addressed him, "Gosling, gosling, little gosling, take me on your wing and carry me to my father, for with my father there is food and drink, and a good time to be had." The gosling replied, "Climb on," and scooped him onto its wings. But it was exhausted and carried him low. And the serpent chased after him, almost catching him, but never quite reaching him. The gosling brought Telesyk and set him down on the earthen bank, and then began to walk around the yard, pecking at the grass. Telesyk sat on the earthen bank and listened to what was happening inside the hut. Meanwhile, the old woman had baked small pies, taking them out of the oven and saying, "This one's for you, old man, a pie. And this one's for me, a pie. And Telesyk from the yard, and for me?" Then she again took out pies and said, "Here's one for you, old man, a pie. And this one's for me. And Telesyk again, and for me?" The old man and old woman listened. "Do you hear, old man, something seems to be calling?" "No," said the old man, "it's probably just your imagination." But the old woman again, "Here's one for you, old man, a pie. And this one's for me." "And for me?" said Telesyk, now at the top of his voice. "If only someone would answer," exclaimed the old woman, and she looked out the window, and there, on the earthen bank, was Telesyk. They then ran out of the hut, grabbed him, and brought him inside, and their joy knew no bounds. And the gosling walked around the yard, and the mother saw it. "Look, a gosling is walking around, I'll go catch it and butcher it." But Telesyk said, "No, Mama, don't butcher it, but feed it. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here with you." And then they fed it, gave it water, and sprinkled millet under its wings. And so the gosling flew away.